Hello everybody and welcome to this fantasy football video. I hope you're doing well. I decided to do this one with the webcam on. So hi, how you doing? I haven't done one in a few weeks. I managed to record one where that's my dog leaving the room. I managed to record one where he recorded 2 seconds of an hour-long video and nothing else. And then the week after that, I recorded one where it had no sound whatsoever. So I was really happy about that, as you can imagine, with limited time and everything, and recording that. I was proper chuffed with that. So it annoyed me for a little bit, but we're back into it now. So game week 7, here we are. Getting a better understanding, I think, of where the Premier League is, or at least I think things are starting to normalise after a crazy beginning of the season. Those Aston Villa results and Everton flying high and all this sort of stuff. I think it's beginning to return to the mean, as it were, but there's still a few surprises out there, I think. So first off, let's have a look at our points for the week. So for this week, I think, did I name a pretty much unchanged side? I think the only person I did was I switched out Mitchell, and who was in my defence and had been scoring pretty well. I put in Chilwell and switched him for someone, I can't remember who now, but he did all right, got 6 points. Clean sheet bonus, I think. I think he's going to score quite well this season. Since he started playing 18-3-6-6 is pretty solid. I think Chelsea are starting to get that defence a little bit under control now with the players they've got in. Otherwise, Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, nothing special there, but in reality, they will score you points over the course of the season. 29 already from Robertson, 19 from Alexander-Arnold. They'll be two of the highest scoring defenders at the end of the season, no doubt. Martinez disappointing this week, although he has scored very well since the beginning of the season. So we'll have to keep an eye on it, because it could be that we start to see Aston Villa slide off a little bit, but we'll see on that one. Grealish had a great week despite Aston Villa, I would say, narrowly losing, but they were 4-0 down. So make of that what you will, I guess, in that respect. But you have 15 points from him, which is obviously excellent. Zaha, disappointing. Pereira, I was a bit disappointed with that. I really thought West Brom would beat Fulham. We'll come into that soon. Son, disappointed, but he has scored very well this season. If he continues like this, it'll be crazy. Same with Kane. Both of those on 140 points between them. Ings missed consistent, I think, with scoring. Disappointed that he will be missing probably the next game, I'd say. So we'll have to look at a replacement for him. And Calvert-Lewin, again, pretty consistent with a goal against Newcastle. So happy with that, with a bonus point as well. So yeah, overall, not too disappointed with the week. 55, the average was 53. I always like to beat the average and then see where you go from there. But I guess what we'll do is we'll actually go into and have a look at the games and have a chat about it. And I really want to have a good chat about the league table and some of the teams. So I think in a way I'm almost more interested in that than maybe some of the I actually want results, don't I? Then some of the results this week, actually. I felt like, judging from these sets of results here, probably apart from the Aston Villa Southampton game, I really did feel like we had a fairly standard Premier League weekend for the first time, as in the majority of the big teams won. We had 2 big teams play each other, and it was a very narrow victory for one of them. And we didn't have any crazy kind of score lines, I'd say, apart from maybe Villa Southampton, but that's what that was. I kind of forgot the Palace game, or rather, I tried to forget the Palace game. And I guess the last weekend as well, we saw that as well with a lot of 2-1s and 1-1s and all that type of stuff. We're starting to perhaps calm things down after what looked like it was going to be a mental season, at the beginning of October. that particular weekend was just one of the craziest weekends I think I've ever experienced in football. Um, you know, it it was honestly insane, but I think we're starting to calm down a little bit. We're still seeing some high scoring results, but um, overall, I think we're hitting a standard. So we'll start with Wolves Palace. Um, yeah, disappointing from Palace as a Palace fan myself. We're I feel very much like we have a good squad. I think Wolves are a very good side, so I'm not sitting here going to go, oh, this is a disgraceful result. Like they're a very good side. Wolves, they're right up there. I think at the minute, if we open a new tab here with the table, Wolves are sixth at the minute. They recovered from a shaky start to the season. I think they lost both their first games, perhaps, or at least two of the first three, and now they're starting to show their kind of true form. They are a very good side, and they are going to be challenging for the top six, I think, this season easily. Palace, on the other hand, we have a situation at Palace, I think, where people criticise Roy Hodgson all the time, and I get it. He is a very, very experienced manager. He knows what he's doing. He How can I put this? He has a way of playing football. He's very cautious as a manager. He doesn't throw caution to the wind and play all his attacking players. You know, he knows that games are won by a defence, and you have to be very solid. And he knows also that as much as Palace fans would probably disagree, his squad is full of mid to lower mid-table Premier League players, and he has to be careful that when you people say like, I'll shoot for the moon, come on, we've got these attacking players. He's left Eze on the bench again. We haven't seen Max Meyer play consistently since he joined the club. Why are these players not playing? You have to be careful what you wish for as Palace fans. I've been a Palace fan long enough to know that we are not ready as a club yet to push for that top half finish. Yes, I don't want to just resign myself to another relegation battle, or sometimes even worse, that kind of lower mid-table finish, which is just quite boring in a way. But there's signs of improvement for Palace. Like, that's something which I see all the time in them as a squad. They improve season on season. They buy players, it improves them. There's a plan. It's not a plan which involves spending a ton of money each season and then playing attacking, expansive football. That doesn't mean it's the wrong plan, and it's step by step. A few seasons ago, well, nearly every season we've been in the Premier League, people have said the Palace will go down. And it hasn't happened since we last went down. But it hasn't happened for a few years, and the reason is because we don't overstretch ourselves. We know what we are, and we grind out results, and we push on. Now, I get that in modern day football being more of an entertainment business, for a lot of people, especially maybe younger Palace fans who don't know the history of Palace as a bit of a yo-yo club and teetering on the edge of administration at a couple of decades ago or so, that they want to see their team go out there and they see some results that Palace get, like when we beat Man City or when we beat Man United this season, and they're like, why can't we do that week in, week out? And it's very difficult. I listen, I don't think Roy Hodgson is the man who's going to bring Palace forward into the 2020s, but primarily because his age just limits him on that factor. The guy is like 72, I think now, so he's not going to be around forever. But at the end of the day, whoever comes into Palace and takes over from Roy, whether it's the end of this season or the end of next, it will be very soon, though, I guarantee you. The guy can't carry on much longer. They will come into a very very well run club, a lot better than when Roy took over. We went through a lot of managers before Roy, and we came through a lot of seasons where we changed managers halfway through and it did the trick, and we can't keep relying on that to stay in the Premier League. And we need consistency, and that's what Roy has brought. He has improved players who've come in, players who people have kind of been writing off a lot of the time. Gyro Reward is a typical one. He's been at Palace for a long time. I don't know how long. I don't know if it'll tell me, but a long time. I remember him joining the club, like 2017, 2018. And you can see he just hasn't kind of, so this is his fourth season now with Palace, and he's never quite kind of consistently had a good run. And now he's starting to get that good run, I think, and we're starting to see a quality player, but it's taken a while for him to bloom and blossom into that player. He's a very, very good player. I think we didn't know quite where his best position was. I think now as a kind of defensive holding midfielder, he seems to be pretty good. He's got good passing range. He's played at centre back. He's played at left back. But he seems to be pretty good. Luca he's the captain, but I think it might be getting beyond him. I know a lot of people would rather perhaps move Ridwell to the centre, have Eze on the left instead of Schlupp, perhaps, and maybe even have Meyer on the right there. But, it's a difficult one. We've had some good results this season. Crystal Palace are into 13th on 10 points. That's 7 points above the relegation zone. That's what Roy will be looking at. He'll be looking at going, okay, we're there. If we win our next game, we potentially could shoot up the table. It's still very, very tight in this table. So, we have to be careful as Palace fans sometimes what we wish for. But I think there is a plan. I think as he is being, kind of edged into the team. It's not a let's just pop him straight in kind of job. He is being kind of like put into the team. Bashuai needs a goal, I think, to get his confidence going, and then he'll start slamming them in. We still have a very good kind of defensive lineup. We still have a lot of injuries. Don't forget at the back. We're still without probably our player of the season last year, Gary Cahill. But I think we're solid enough. I've probably spoken about Palace for too long now. But fair play to Wolves. Totally deserved their win, and they're still a very good side. Let's, I guess, move on. Sheffield United, Man City. Sheffield United with just a terrible start to the season. Like 1 point out of 7 games is atrocious. Got Chelsea next, and you would not bet against Chelsea. It seems to me that in this season of crazy results and some drubbings, Sheffield United have not had that. They often lose by a goal, and often they're struggling to score. You can see here, Man City, you would expect to dominate possession, but really, Sheffield United had one shot on target. They've just been very lacklustre. Rhian Brewster, I don't know if he is the one. I don't know if he's the guy to get Sheffield United firing. I hope he is, for England's sake more than anything. I think Sheffield United is still a very good club, a good team. But they have to be very careful because, one of the worst sides I've seen in the Premier League now has 3 more points than Sheffield United. So they need to be careful. You have to imagine Burnley are not going to be, terrible forever. And Brighton are now 4 points ahead of them. I mean, Man United are in 15th, which I don't see happening, but we'll talk about Man United later. West Ham, you're starting to look at it and go, who else? Is the relegation battle starting to show up here? Is it going to be potentially Burnley, Sheffield United, West Brom, Fulham, Brighton? Is that going to start separating here? Easily could involve West Ham, Palace, maybe even Leeds, maybe even Newcastle, although they're scraping out results, up in 11th. You have to imagine Aston Villa have had some good form, although obviously lost their last 2 games, conceded a lot of goals, but I don't think any of the others up here are going to be involved in it. So I think Man United won't be involved in a relegation battle. as hilarious as that would be. So I think Sheffield United and definitely Burnley as well have to be very careful. As for Man City, they're starting to move back up the table. Obviously, they've had some dodgy results, some dodgy draws. That loss to Leicester as well, which obviously hurt them. But a couple of 1-0 wins here. Maybe they're starting to show a little bit more resilience at the back. It's going to take Diaz and Laporte a while to kind of get used to them. I think they still have this problem in midfield where Fernandinho has not really been replaced, and Rodrigo, just while an accomplished passer of the ball, doesn't really give you that kind of solidity in front of the defence, I think, and that would worry me. They obviously still have this plethora of players up going forward. I worry for Nathan Ake as well because they brought him in, and excuse me while I have a drink. Lovely squash. They brought him in, to kind of play in the back, and then a few weeks later or a month later brought Ruben Diaz for even more money. So yeah, I worry for Nathan Ake there a little bit. I don't know what Phil Foden needs to do to get a decent run in the side, but I don't know. And they still struggle up front, I think. That's, for me, that's been, I don't know what Man City have, what their idea of their striker looks like in the next few years. A club which has almost limitless resources to not have a striker is, I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You think that Jesus, for me, has always seemed quite injury prone. He never seems to have a consistent run of games, and I'm not quite sure he's at the level Man City want. I think he's an exceptional player, and I think he would be a very good player for most top 6 sides. But if you're Man City with those resources, I think you want probably the best striker in the world, or top 3. And he is not going to be in that category, in my opinion, even if they give him a good run, or even in a couple of years. So I think they need to look at who they want. I think an Mbappe would definitely be on the cards for them. I know there's a lot of rumours about him possibly going to Liverpool, but I think he goes straight into Man City side. He goes into every side in the world, to be fair. But what I mean is that that's the type of player they want, is a world superstar up front. Aguero, for me, is still a very, very good player, but I think he's now on the wane in terms of his physical ability. He's still a credible finisher, but yeah, if you want to be Man City and you want to dominate world football, why, how can you not have a striker? It puzzles me, but there you go. I know one thing which could be hurting them a little bit is I think this is Pep Guardiola's last year of his contract, and before maybe making that outlay on a striker, they probably want to tidy up exactly what's going on with Pep. So is he going to be here next season? If he isn't, what does that look like? Who do they get in? It's hard to imagine Man City without Pep in a funny way, because they've based so much of their identity on him and the way he plays. And when you think about it, there's not that many managers out there in the similar kind of vein to Pep Guardiola. I mean, obviously you have managers who kind of play the same way, but I mean as a personality, a kind of a cult of personality out there. There's not many out there who can do it. There's some excellent managers out there, obviously. I would be tempted if Pep decided to leave. And I think, listen, if Pep wants to stay, Man City will bite his hand off and keep him there. Absolutely. I don't care if he hasn't won the league last season. I don't care if he hasn't won the Champions League there. Like, they want him there. He's a world superstar. He's up there with a Mbappe in terms of, your superstars. And that's great for the business that is, Man City. But the thing, I guess, that would the guy I would maybe look at would be a little bit of maybe Erik ten Hag of Ajax, to kind of pull through there. or it's difficult to think of a team who kind of play the same way and play with that, you know, that kind of, and has that kind of personality to be able to come in and follow Pep Guardiola. Who wants to follow Pep Guardiola? I mean, you can argue if he doesn't win anything this season, then it might be an easier job. But I mean, that is big shoes to fill in terms of a cult of personality. But yeah, I'm worried about Sheffield United this season. I am. 7 games in and 1 point is not good. Yeah, Chelsea looking good though. Definitely looking better at the back, as we thought they would. I still worry about them a little bit at the back. Um, it's from the simple fact that I don't think Kurt Zuma is. Again, if you're Chelsea and you have similar resources to Man City, I don't think Kurt Zuma is the answer to you wanting to be one of the best teams in the world. And Thiago Silva, while a good defender, is clearly, he's not one for the future, is he? Edouard Mendy has looked much better than I expected coming into that side, which is great. That's exactly what they needed. It does obviously mean that Chelsea really have to probably write off at least sort of 50, 60 million on Kepa's value, because I think they paid close to 70 million for Kepa, and I'd be surprised if they managed to get 30 for him, from another team. I don't know who would be out there buying him. So I kind of, I mean, he named 2 goalkeepers on the substitute bench. That's hilarious, actually, and one of them wasn't Kepa. I wonder about Rudiger. I always felt like Rudiger was Chelsea's best defender. I don't know if he's just on his way back, or I know that there was talk of them loaning him out, so I don't know if he's in Frank Lampard's plans. But yeah, that would be a shame. And I think Chilwell and Reece James, I think that's I'll say it here, that I think that is as good a fullback partnership potentially as Liverpool have, with Alexander-Arnold Robertson. I think they're both very, very good. I think England right now are blessed with, right backs especially. But Ben Chilwell can make that left back position his own, I think, for England. Considering we keep playing like Kieran Trippier there. Yeah, hopefully he can. But yeah, it's interesting. It's also interesting that Lampard is persisting with Mason Mount in midfield. I do think Mount is a very, very good player. I don't know if he is a global superstar worthy of being in Chelsea's, starting 11. I appreciate that this season is going to be different because you have to rotate a lot. So, it's great to have him in there. Same with, looking at Tammy Abraham up front. I still think that Timo Werner, I know he got a goal. I know he has had some decent form in the last couple of games. He's looked a lot better. I feel like playing centrally is his better position. I think maybe when Pulisic comes back, that might be the idea, to have him on the left, Werner down the middle, and then someone else down the right, probably Ziyech, who has actually looked really good since he's kind of come in. Havertz, I think, is still. I think they're still looking for what the position is that they're going to play Havertz in, if that makes sense. For me, you should be building the team kind of around Havertz and Werner, because I think they're 2 superstars, more so than Ziyech or Pulisic or whoever. I think those 2 could be the spine of your team for many, many seasons to come. And I'm not sure at the minute that's what's happening. I think he's playing them out of position to accommodate other players. And I personally don't think that's a great idea. Listen, Chelsea have improved their form substantially. They've, their defence has looked ropey as hell in some games. 3 goals to West Brom, 3 goals to Southampton. A 0-0 then with Man United. I think they had a good draw with Sevilla in the Champions League. beat Burnley, Sheffield United next. You wouldn't bet against them, but I think there's still work to be done on where players fit in and what the kind of the football is there at Chelsea. And as much as people want to talk about Frank Lampard and whether he's good enough or whether he's not good enough, the fact of the matter is he won't have time to be able to do that. Like that's Chelsea's MO is if you don't fit as a manager, if you don't get results, then you go. And some people, well, I mean, it's been very successful for them, hasn't it? Maybe they're going to try a different approach and they want to build something with Frank Lampard. Maybe they're willing for him to learn on the job and to improve. I don't think Frank Lampard is an elite manager capable of winning the Premier League or Champions League. At the minute, he might go on to become that manager. I think he's not as bad as a lot of people make out. I think there's certain areas where he's clearly struggling in, and defensively that would be the case. But he's more than capable of leading a challenge with this Chelsea team who had the players to be there. And we haven't really seen about his man management yet. I mean, and maybe that's a good thing, but I haven't really seen, I guess we've seen with Kepa a little bit. He has been quite ruthless there. Some managers might have been like, listen, we've got to keep persisting with this guy. And I'm sure that Chelsea's probably hierarchy would have been like, listen, we need to persist with this guy because he cost us 70 million and we can't just afford to write that off. And he obviously got his way and got in Mendy. I don't think that was, in fact, I'm 100% sure that was not a board decision going over Frank Lampard's head. I'm sure he was actively pushing to get a new goalkeeper in. And now I guess he's, they've put their money where their mouth is a bit. He's, got this player in and now he has to perform and get the most out of this team now. And it's even more pressure when it's one thing to spend 200 million on players, and bring players in when you clearly need those players. It's another thing to turn around and write off, the most expensive goalkeeper in the world by bringing in another expensive goalkeeper. That is the sort of thing where, regardless of, there's going to be a lot of people in Chelsea's hierarchy who want success, but equally want a well-run, profitable club. And doing those sorts of things is not the way to have a profitable club. So, he's got almost an even bigger challenge, but he clearly has self-belief. And that, I feel like in some ways, that is a very important quality for a manager, is having that belief in yourself to push forward and, to that kind of that conviction of what you're doing is the right way. And fair play to him. Like Chelsea, I'd argue that Chelsea have got a top 3 squad in the league, maybe top 2, but maybe only Liverpool's squad is better than Chelsea's on paper, everyone fit. So by rights, they should be up there now. Obviously, there's a lot of players for them to bed in and get right. But, I said last season they were capable, I thought, of challenging for the title. Now, Liverpool obviously ran away with it, but I felt that they didn't hit their potential last season. This season, if they don't hit potential, you worry for Frank Lampard and his future at the club. I hope he is successful because, firstly, he's a young English manager and there's not enough of those in the league. And secondly, it's nice to see when, a legend comes back to a club and does well, rather than Chelsea just... and also a guy who clearly is committed to bringing through young talent. Clearly wants to play attacking football, through there. He's brought through a lot of players and should be, it would be quite easy for him to bring in the Mourinho method and we'd never see Mason Mount, we'd never see Reece James, in their squad. We'd never see a lot of the other guys who have come through. Tammy Abraham would not have been in there. Callum Hudson-Odoi, these players would not have kind of come through. Well, Hudson-Odoi, I guess, wasn't Frank Lampard, fair play, but do you know what I mean? He's committed to bringing through these young youth players that Chelsea have long since been kind of culpable for sending out on loan for many a season and then just selling on. So I want to see him succeed because I think it's good for football. But at the end of the day, I worry for how ruthless Chelsea can be with their managers. So yeah, but fair play to him. He clearly has the balls to do the job, and that's kind of that's a good percentage of what you need. So hopefully he can kind of continue that and push forward with Chelsea. Chelsea are always that side that people kind of love to hate. And I think maybe Man City have slightly overtaken it a little bit, but um, you know, they are, as a neutral, they are at least bringing through English players, for the England squad. You can at least say that about them. So, yeah, we'll see where they end up on there. But a good win for them. A worry about Burnley. I know I haven't really spoken about Burnley, but I'm genuinely worried. Not a shot on target in this game, and I don't know if Sean Dyche. I know he was pissed off. Burnley didn't sign a single player in the transfer window. They are playing with essentially the same team that they had last season. I get that Burnley are definitely, even though they've been a Premier League club for a while now, are certainly not the richest club and probably rely on the gate receipts and season tickets a lot more than some clubs. But me, that was kind of unacceptable. When you have a manager like Sean Dyche who has worked miracles, he deserves to have some backing and push on. And I think that sooner rather than later, he will move on from Burnley. And when he moves on, Burnley will find, the harsh realities of the Championship looming, I think. I'd love to see Sean Dyche come to Palace. Like, people talk about him as like this kind of long ball merchant, but I think actually Burnley are a lot better than that. He is very much a manager where he gets the best out of the players he has. Like, a lot of these players, like, without being funny, they're Championship players. Without wanting to be rude about them, a lot of them are. Dwight McNeil, I think, is a very, very good player. James Tarkowski is a very good player. Nick Pope's obviously very good, but like a lot of these guys, they're Championship players in the Premier League, and he has worked miracles at that club season after season. And for me, for them not to back him was the beginning of the end, I think, for him. Liverpool with a late win over West Ham. A lot of people talk about West Ham are like, oh, they've looked really good since their shaky start, and they've had some decent results. Like they beat Wolves, beat Leicester, drew with Tottenham, that amazing comeback, which was just crazy. Drew with West Ham. They definitely drew with West Ham. They drew with Man City, and then came close to drawing with Liverpool. I don't believe that West Ham are going to be anywhere more than a mid to lower mid-table team. I believe they've got enough quality to avoid relegation, but people are talking about them, I think, like, they're a really good side now, and I think they're pretty solid, but I don't think they're a really good side. I think they have some very good players, and I don't think Declan Rice is going to be there next season. I think he is looking more and more like what Chelsea are missing, and I think sooner rather than later he will find his way, across London to Chelsea there. But they're a very solid side, I think, and that is definitely what David Moyes is all about. He's a canny operator. He will get, he will get them firing, basically. Now, Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool were top of the table. This is a side who lost 7-2 to Aston Villa, and they're top of the league. It just shows how crazy season. Now, that was their only game they've lost this season, so fair play to them for that. They've won 5, scored 17. The 15 against is the worry there, isn't it? Like, that is the second highest in the Premier League after West Brom. Now, obviously, the 7 is contributing to the majority of that. If they'd have, say, only let in 2, they would have been on 10 goals conceded, which is the same as Leicester and Tottenham. So I get that it's not that, but there is this worry that with now Fabinho and Virgil van Dijk injured, and Van Dijk out for a good long chunk of the season, if not the majority of it, can Liverpool sustain this challenge? I think I don't know is the answer, but I also don't see other sides which are coming through with this sparkling form to challenge them. So what I mean by that is Liverpool might lose the odd game because they don't have Virgil van Dijk, and they put in a bit of a shocking display or something like that. But I also feel that Leicester, Tottenham, Man City, the other title challengers are also capable of doing exactly the same. So I think by that respect, while I don't think Liverpool are going to run away with it, I think they will still win the league, because also that front attacking lineup is so lethal, and Diego Jota is looking really good, and Firmino needs to be very worried about his position up front, because he has not really played brilliantly for, well, probably since lockdown. I think he hasn't looked that good. Salah and Mane still look, imperious up front, and they still have Robertson and Trent and Alexander-Arnold in defence, who are still excellent. And Alisson's back now, which I think was the bigger deal. Right, if you said to me, and I wonder what Liverpool fans think. If you're a Liverpool fan, I'd like to know. But for me, I would rather lose Virgil van Dijk than Alisson. I think Alisson is a more important player to Liverpool than Virgil van Dijk. And I know it's tempting to be like, Virgil van Dijk is the best defender in the world. He's this, he's that. What I'm saying is that I think Liverpool can cope with a central defender out, but I think having to play Adrian in goal would have cost them more goals than Virgil van Dijk. That's my opinion. I think Virgil van Dijk does offer them so much, but what I'm saying is the backup they have to Virgil van Dijk on paper. So I'm looking if Fabinho, if Matip, if all these players are fit. Obviously, right now, I know you'd rather probably have Virgil van Dijk because you're having to play Nathaniel Phillips. No offence to him, but this guy, he's playing his first games for Liverpool now, because so many players are injured. But I think in reality, if everyone else was fit, I would rather lose Virgil van Dijk than Alisson. So I think that's great that he's come back. So I think my money would still be on Liverpool to win the league. I don't think that's going to surprise anyone, but we clearly have a long way to go. For there. Southampton 4, Aston Villa 3. I think it was looking very rosy for Southampton until we got into stoppage time, and then it started to get a bit squeaky bum time. Just took their foot off the gas, didn't they, really? Danny Ings, clearly massively important player for them. It kind of reminds me in a way of Kevin Phillips for Sunderland, just like very much like where the goals come from. James Ward-Prowse, everyone knows he's free kicks and set pieces, he's absolutely deadly in. So I don't think that's, to score 2 free kicks in a game is pretty good going now, I will give you that. And Southampton looked very good, but Aston Villa, to be fair, did come back. And I think Aston Villa, for me, have been one of the surprise packages of this season. They barely stayed in the Premier League last season. If it wasn't for a dodgy given goal that did goal which didn't cross the line, which did cross the line, which wasn't given, I think it was the Wolves game, potentially, it would have been relegated. And, they came out storming. They have lost their last 2, Leeds and Southampton. We'll see where they go. But before that, they were flying, really. So, and scoring goals, which I think was where they did struggle a little bit last season. But they've got more options now up front. I think Ollie Watkins is a very, very good player. I think he will really, really do well for them. And I wouldn't be surprised if he carries on this way, if some bigger clubs are sniffing around him, which is great, because I always rated Ollie Watkins. I thought he was a brilliant player. I really wanted Palace to sign him, but I think he was just too expensive for them in the end. I think both Southampton and Aston Villa will be mid-table this season. I know Southampton have been on this really great run. Beat Burnley, beat West Brom, drew Chelsea, beat Everton. I would say Everton is the only one that, in reality, you wouldn't have given them a chance of winning normally. So I think they've done what is expected of them. When they start facing some bigger sides, we'll see what happens. I know that they obviously drew Chelsea, but we'll see. But I do think Southampton will go around this kind of mid-table level here. And Aston Villa, I wonder whether they can sustain what they're doing, or whether they will drop down to a more natural mid to lower mid-table position by the end of the season. We'll have to wait and see. Newcastle Everton. Newcastle is such a weird side. Like, I feel like they're just a bit crap, but They're very much mid-table with 3 wins. They're doing what it takes to kind of win games. And Steve Bruce gets so much shit, and I don't get it. I get it. He's not fashionable as a manager. I get it that his football is not sparkling. But your primary thing as a football manager is to win games and get results, and that's what he does. And I fail to see there's much of a difference between what he's doing at Newcastle and what Rafa Benitez is doing at Newcastle. In all honesty, so I don't get the hate for him. Newcastle fans need to be very careful what they wish for. Same way as Palace fans, they can want him out. They can want more attacking football. They can want to have a go. They could find themselves in a relegation battle if they do that. I've got no doubt if Newcastle get taken over, Bruce will be out, because if they do get a bit of money and people want to invest, like Steve Bruce is not the face. You know, I talked about Guardiola being this cult of personality. I think that Steve Bruce is not that. And we'll see where he, what happens if that does happen. As for Everton, they've started to. I listened to this on the radio, and they were saying that Everton it was like they were very tense, not almost nervous, but just like quite tense, I think. And I think that's the pressure of them being up there a little bit and this expectation on them to win. Now, they did obviously miss Rodriguez and Richarlison, and I think they were big misses for them. And this was the thing I kind of said about Everton, I think, which is on paper their starting 11 is very strong. But once you start delving down into those, those lower, the squad players, it doesn't look quite as ropey, or it doesn't look quite as good, I should say. It does look a bit ropey. Interesting that they played Olsen in goal for this one and put Pickford on the bench. But yeah, so we'll see with Everton. Listen, I think if Everton get top 6 this season, that is a wonderful achievement. They have been massively inconsistent in previous years. A couple of losses on the trot, though, to teams who, they've had bigger results this season, shall we say, and they play Man United next, which I think will be a cracking game. Speaking of Manchester United, they lost 1-0 to Arsenal. Man United, such a weird team this season, aren't they? Like, they've had these great results in the Champions League against PSG, against, obviously the Leipzig game stands out, 5-0. Which one's the real Man United? Is it the one in the Champions League? Is it the one in the league? And I would say it is actually both. I think that when they play against bigger sides who come up them a bit, they are much, much better than when they are the ones expected to go forward. I think their games at home this season, of which I think they've played 4, I think they lost to Palace, they lost to Spurs, they just lost to Arsenal, and they drew with Chelsea, right? So that's 4 of their 6 games have been at home, and they've lost 3 of those, drawn 1. That's not good. That's not good at all. They find themselves in 15th on 7 points. They are more than, they are 9 points behind Liverpool at the top there, and that is clearly not good enough with the team they have. Now, I find Man United a weird team at the minute, a weird squad. Like, I wonder to myself, like, are they good? Are they not good? Like, you watch against Leipzig, you see Rashford, and you're like, wow, that was spectacular. And I think he has had a good season so far. But then he also has games, I think, where he just does nothing. I think this was one of them. And for me, the thing that's stopping Marcus Rashford from probably being an elite striker in world football is that consistency, that he does tend to fade out of games, and you're kind of wondering where he is in some games. And sometimes what you need from your striker is to take the game by the scruff of the neck when it's so tight, when the other team is quite defensive, and just pull out a bit of magic, whether it's a finish, whether it's beating a man and laying the ball off, or something like that. And I feel like, I don't know if Marcus Rashford is quite capable of doing that. Yeah, it could be that he does. But when you look on paper at Man United's team, you do turn around and go, how on earth can you play so badly? um, there's been a lot of talk about Maguire in defence, and I think defensively they've looked a lot better since the international break. Like, you have to give credit to them for that, because they looked terrible before, and since then they've played this kind of more diamond shape in some of their games, and they've looked a lot better. And I don't think they did against Chelsea, but they've certainly kind of stuck more to this four at the back and looked good. I know the PSG game they played five at the back, and Tuanzebe looked really good, and a lot of people are crying for him to come in, but I think it's very dangerous when you just want a player to play because he's had one good game. I think Axel Tuanzebe is a very good defender, but I think it's very dangerous to write off Harry Maguire in that way. It's just crap or whatever. I think it's a manager's job as much as anything to find a way to get that guy working and playing. And I talked about Lampard and him writing off Kepa and having the balls to do that. I don't think Ollie would have those balls to just write off Maguire, and I don't think he would be allowed to by the board in the same way. The Man United board clearly didn't sanction, despite having the money to go out and buy another central defender. So why, it's no good turning around and saying we need to get Maguire out, because you're not going to get a replacement for him. So he needs to work on what he can do to get the best out of Harry Maguire. And I don't think necessarily playing with Lindelof in a back four does that, but we'll see. The Donnie Van Der Beek thing is becoming more of a problem than it is. So having Donnie Van Der Beek on the bench should be a blessing for a manager, right? The problem is now it's almost like an Ozil situation at Arsenal in a way, but obviously a microcosm of that, where Ozil being around the squad when you're struggling to score, you're always like, bring him on, bring him on. The manager doesn't. He gets criticised for not bringing him on. It's not to say that Ozil's going to turn the game around, and then the problem I think comes along is when you have players like Pogba who are clearly struggling for form a little bit and playing the whole game, and you have Van Der Beek on the bench. I know he did come on, but he came on for Fernandes, which, when you need a goal, I find it fascinating. You take off Bruno Fernandes, but there you go. You're only going to get criticised from it. You're on a hiding to nothing in a way. I think that Arsenal played a very good game. They've looked very, very solid this season. It's interesting because I think a lot of people felt that Arsenal were going to be this attacking, like free-flowing kind of side, and they haven't been. They've been winning games by like one goal here and there and trying to keep clean sheets, which they obviously haven't played well against City or Leicester. They did beat Man United. I think I wonder about Arsenal. Like that's a really important win for Arteta. I think if he hadn't have won that, they'd be on 9 points. They'd be down here, and there'd be a lot of pressure right now. I think he's just brought himself a little bit of breathing room, Arteta, because I think there are massive questions about what he's doing with this Arsenal squad. And he's brought himself a bit of breathing room to just kind of get the team going again. Thomas Partey coming in, going to take a little while for him to bed in. He has started to look pretty good. El Nene's been a real surprise this season as well. Like I never thought I'd see El Nene in an Arsenal shirt again for a prolonged period of time, and he's looked pretty good. Like I can't quite understand it, but he has. I think the problem they have up front, I know Pierre-Emerick got the goal, but I'm going to say it was a penalty. You have to score him, yes, but it was a penalty. He hasn't looked the same player this season as he has, last season. Whatever that reason is. Lacazette, I think fans especially getting increasingly frustrated with Lacazette. When you have players like Nketiah and Pepe on the bench, it's hard sometimes to justify Lacazette. I think if what's his name? The young Brazilian kid at Arsenal. I've got to look this up now because I can't remember his name. It's completely gone. Martinelli, that's the one. Sorry, I think if Martinelli was fit, I think it would be. Maybe they wouldn't even be playing Lacazette now. On paper, Lacazette six appearances, 3 goals is not bad, but he's not contributing a lot other than those 3 goals, I'd say. And again, Aubameyang, 1 assist, 2 goals. I don't know if they were both penalties, but certainly one of them was a penalty. Pepe, 6 games, 1 goal. Something's not working up front, is it? Like, I think midfield and defensively, they've looked better than I thought this season. But, you know, up front, they've, there's clearly an issue here. Pepe, Willian obviously got those 2 assists at the end of the season, hasn't done anything since then. It's, I don't think everything's rosy in Arsenal land, put it that way. I know that's a really good win for them and they'll be very happy, but I really, really don't think everything's rosy in Arsenal land here. It certainly isn't in Man United land. The question is, what can they do to change this around? And if I was Arsenal, I would drop Lacazette probably. Put Aubameyang through the middle, I think. I'd keep trying to get something out of Pepe again. I talk about trying to write off a player, but Arsenal can't afford to write off a £70 million player who, by the way, they're still paying for because it was in instalments. Like, they can't just afford to write him off. And I think it's really difficult, that it's super difficult, And Man United, I don't think it's as easy as to turn around and say, play Donnie Van Der Beek instead of Paul Pogba, play Matic instead of Scott McTominay, but I think they would have done a lot better in this game probably if they'd have done that. Now, again, we're talking about writing players off. Pogba's a £100 million player. How is this not working for him? How is he not contributing to the team? How is he playing so badly? Is he? I think with Pogba, it's a commitment thing. I just don't think he's committed to Man United. I don't think he wants to be there. I don't think I think it shows. And I think the quicker that they move him on and avoid an Ozil situation, the better, really. Yeah. But we'll see. Tottenham, Brighton. Brighton, I feel for Brighton this season. Like, I feel like of those losses, the Man United one, they didn't deserve to lose. The Everton one maybe deserved a little bit to lose. They probably deserved a bit more from the Palace game, deserved a bit more from the West Brom game, and they deserved more from this Tottenham game. But at the end of the day, you kind of make your own luck, I think. And I'm wondering, that's an interesting formation there they got going on, isn't it? I wonder if Brighton have got the quality to stay up. I do wonder. Like, 1 win out of 7 is not great defensively. They've conceded goals. Yeah, they're in a relegation battle, like, without a doubt, and I don't think that's where they wanted to be. Well, it's not where anyone wants to be. What I mean is expect to be, probably. We'll see kind of what happens to them. They've played some tough games. They've played against some big sides, but they should be doing better, Tottenham, I looked at this and went, this is a very typical kind of Jose Mourinho performance where they perhaps were not at their best and their sparkliness, Tottenham, but they got through and they found a way. That Gareth Bale goal, I think, is very important. I think him coming into the squad, having a kind of being able to play him, Kane and Son, I think is as formidable as anything in the Premier League or world football. I think that is incredible lineup to have up front. Spurs fans must be absolute, and you can bring on players like Lamela, like Moira, Lo Celso. This is one of the best Tottenham squads I've probably ever seen in my life. They've got to win something though, and to be fair, they've got a manager who knows how to win, and so I think that. I think at the minute Spurs are my dark horses for this league. Like, they're in second, I think, third now. Sorry, because Leicester won, and they are kind of in my dark horse because I just think that they have that attacking power. The Eric Dyer thing is weird. I don't think Eric Dyer is good enough to be playing at the back, but they have a very good goalkeeper. I think Doherty and Reguilon looks brilliant. Like, he looks like a quality signing. Doherty has taken a little bit of time to settle in, I think, but he will. Højbjerg, I think, has looked all right for them. I think he's given a bit of bite that Mourinho wants. And Ndombele, very consistent at the minute. If he can find consistency, good. But they just have these options off the bench as well, which look really good. Rodon, sorry. Defence. And obviously, if they keep Kane, Son, and Bale fit, and I think that's the key, all three of those players, well, Kane and Bale especially, have been injury prone. Son, not so much. Son's been okay, I think. But if they do keep those players fit, I think they would be my dark horses for the league this season. We'll see. We'll see. Mourinho just knows how to grind out results. You just don't write him off. Spurs have scored the most goals in the league this season. So people turning around and saying like Jose Mourinho's a part of the bus merchant. Like, the man deserves a lot more respect than he gets. You don't win 3 European Cups and league titles across the continent by being a part of the bus merchant. Like, he knows how to win football games, and maybe we're seeing that at Man United. He did win things at Man United. Let's not forget this. He did win things, but we're also probably seeing that Man United squad he had was probably weaker than the Tottenham squad he has now. And I think if anyone in the world football is going to deliver a trophy to Tottenham, Mourinho will be the guy to do it. And I think it's a perfect job for him, because when Mourinho is in a club which is at the top, so Man United, Real Madrid, now, he did win things at both those clubs, but mentally, I don't think it's the right fit. I think he sometimes needs to have that slight underdog mentality to be able to really perform. Porto, Inter, Chelsea, to a certain extent, coming in, being that kind of like slightly hated one, not probably having to commit to paying the perfect passing football, but whereas that expectation level maybe at those clubs doesn't fit with the spiky Mourinho kind of attitude. But I think Tottenham is a perfect club for him to come in at and pull off a Jose Mourinho kind of trick. And he's never going to be the personality of a Klopp. He's never going to be the never going to have the attacking football of Guardiola. But what he has is just incredible ability to win football matches. And, his record, I've been lucky that I've seen managers like Sir Alex Ferguson, probably the best ever manager, in my opinion, in world football. But Sir Alex Ferguson did it all at one club in one league. Like, Mourinho, for me, has just gone around the world and just won things consistently at different clubs. And I think that is a really, you might not like his style of football, you might prefer a different style, but he gets results at the end of the day. And that generally, as I said at the beginning, that's what a football manager's job is, to do, get results. So I'm rooting for Spurs, I'll tell you. I am, because it's been a long time, and I think when they really play, like watching Son and Kane play together is just some of the best stuff I've seen. They're just brilliant. Like Harry Kane, I remember when he first kind of came on, and everyone was saying he was this kind of one-season wonder, and then this 2-season wonder, or he only scores penalties, or he only does this. Like, he's one of the most complete players in world football, in my opinion. Like, he's as good as Lewandowski. Maybe even slightly better, because his ability to assist goals as well as score them is just incredible. 6 goals in 7 appearances this season. It doesn't show me how many assists he's got, but maybe it will here. Okay, it only tells me total. But he has been phenomenal this season, I think. And, you look at that since he came on the scene, 2014, 21, 25, 29, 30. A couple of injury-ravaged seasons. As I say, the injury things are the worry. But that is like Shearer-esque numbers, And yet, he does so much more than Shearer, because he's so good at building the play as well. Like, I think England have one of the best strikers in the world. Probably only Lewandowski, as I said, in that kind of role, I think is better right now. But anyway, uh, we'll move on. Stop talking about it. Brighton, as I said, unlucky. Really surprised Fulham won this. I have to say, disappointed in West Brom here. Thought they were a bit better. Still think both these teams are going to get relegated. Don't think either of them are good enough to stay in the Premier League. That's really all I've got to say on it, I think. Disappointed in Loftus-Cheek so far at Fulham. Think he is a better player than he has looked in those games. Lookman's looked pretty decent, I think, for them. I think both defences are not good enough to sustain a campaign in the Premier League, would be my opinion there. Leicester, battering Leeds. Leeds, people, I said this from the very beginning with Leeds, it's like, I think Leeds are a decent team, but I always felt like they would be involved in a relegation battle. Because I think there is that ability for them to win games and score goals. But for me, to stay up, what they need to do is they need to amass a lot of points at the beginning of the season because they always tire in the second half of the season. And for me, if they are not at least kind of like 15 points clear of relegation by the time we get into, say, February, they might struggle, I think, with the demands of the season. Now, I don't think they're going to go down because I think that there are definitely 3 worse teams in the Premier League than them, or quite a few more at the minute, like 5 or 6. But like, I don't. People are talking about Leeds as being up here somewhere. Like, it's ridiculous in my opinion. They'll probably beat Palace. Don't get me wrong, they'll probably beat Palace, but we'll see. And Leicester are good. Let's not write them off. Rodgers, another manager who consistently gets disrespected, I think, for what he does. They did fade off last season, and that could have been enough to kind of finish a manager, but he obviously has a lot of self-confidence, Brendan Rodgers, and again, he gets criticised for that, but you need that at this level. Like, it's ridiculous to not have that. They beat Man City, they beat Arsenal. They're a decent side, and they will be up in there. I would imagine they'll be top 4 this season. If I was looking at it right now, I had to make a prediction. I'd say it would be Liverpool in the top 4, Leicester, Tottenham, and then probably Chelsea. I think Chelsea will come up there. Well, Man City? I'm not saying Man City there, did I? So that's interesting. Ooh, I say a top 5 then with Man City in there, and then what happened? I don't think Man United will be in the top 5 this season. I don't think Arsenal will either. But yeah, it's the Premier League. This is why the Premier League, I think, is the best league in the world because, like, literally, I don't know who's going to win the league. I don't know who's going to be in the top 4. I don't know who's going to be in the top 6. There's so many teams just come through. I know who's probably going to win the German league. I know who's going to win the French league. I know 1 or 2 teams are going to win the Spanish league. I know probably a team who's going to win the Italian league, or at least 1 of 2 teams going to win the Italian league. It's probably still going to be Juventus, despite AC Milan's great start. But in England, despite having one of the best teams in the world, I don't know Liverpool going to win the league. I don't know who's going to finish in the top 4. There's no establishment. This is why these teams want a European Super League, is because it's too competitive in the Premier League. It's simultaneously great because it allows them to sell rights to other countries, and it's simultaneously awful because it means there's a potential for them not to finish in the top 4 and get all that Champions League money. So they want guaranteed money each season, which they don't get. So yeah, I think we've had a good chat about that. Good chat about the league. We're coming over the hour mark now. As for what fixtures we've got coming up, so Burnley, Brighton, Southampton, Newcastle, Everton, Man United. That'll be a cracking game, I think. Palace, Leeds. Not looking forward to playing Leeds. Chelsea, Sheffield United. Ooh, things could be looking really bad for Sheffield United. West Ham, Fulham. West Brom, Spurs. You see that. That's the type of game where you say Spurs could trip up on. That's the sort of game that they have to win if they want to be challenging. Leicester, Wolves. That could be a cracking game. Man City, Liverpool. Ooh. Arsenal, Aston Villa. Yeah, and I guess we've got an international break after that, have we? Yeah, probably. Cool. Well, I think that finishes up this video. Thanks for watching. As always, been my pleasure, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.